So hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. My name is Ami Feiner, and together with me is Ari Treger from our pixel department. And our topic for today is 3K HD cameras. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Ari Treger, who is going to show you everything there is to know about 3K compatibilities between cameras, DVRs, what works with what happens if it doesn't work. What do I need to do? How do I change the resolution of the camera in case it doesn't work? And things like that. This seminar is about 30 to 35 minutes long. If you have any questions, feel free to write it on the chat. I will ask on behalf of you at the end. And let's start. Ari, please do. Open your mic.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, 1 second.
Go ahead.
Okay, still cool. All right, thanks for the introduction, Ami. You've obviously explained exactly what the seminar is about, so let's get started. 1 second, I'm just trying to adjust my view here. Sorry. Okay, so I want to start off by explaining or clarifying something. I want to clarify the differences between our 5 megapixel and 3K HD cameras. So both our 5 megapixel HD camera and 3K HD cameras operate using AHD and TVI technologies, but there's a key difference in their native aspect ratios. So the 5 megapixel camera uses a 4.3 aspect ratio, while the 3K camera uses a 16:9 aspect ratio, achieving this naturally without any digital enhancements to fit the viewing window. Additionally, the 5 megapixel resolution is 2608 by 1960 compared to the 3K resolution, which is 2944 by 1656. However, if you do that mathematics, the total pixel count is almost identical, meaning that in essence, both the 5K and 5 megapixel cameras offer a 5 megapixel resolution, apologies, with the major difference being their native aspect ratios. Okay, makes sense? Another important topic is understanding which DVRs support camera or which camera resolutions. So to clarify again, we offer 3 different DVR resolution tiers, and within each, there are multiple variants. These variants may include different case sizes, AI engines for advanced analytics, alarm outputs, or other features. For instance, some DVRs come with AI capabilities, allowing you to use features like sterile area or line crossing analytics on limited number of channels with analog cameras. The DVR resolutions that we do offer are 2 megapixel, 5 megapixel, and 8 megapixel, meaning that the DVR supports up to its respective resolution as the maximum. Naturally, they are compatible with cameras of equal or lower resolutions, and here's a breakdown of their compatibility. So for 2 megapixels, they are compatible with obviously 2 megapixel, 1 megapixel cameras, as well as CVBS, which translates to 1,000 TV lines. With our 5 megapixel DVRs, they're compatible with CVBS, 1 megapixel, 2 megapixel, 4 and 5 megapixel, as well as 3K cameras. And our 8 megapixel DVRs are compatible with cameras ranging from CVBS all the way up to 8 megapixel. It's important to note that with our 3K cameras, achieving 3K resolution requires the DVR specifically designed to handle 3K resolution. This is precisely why we named the camera 3K, to make compatibility clear. And this requirement applies exclusively to the 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel DVRs. If either DVR does not support the 3K resolution, I'll provide guidance on steps needed to reduce the resolution on the 3K camera for compatibility. Let's turn our attention to compatibility or DVR compatible models. As of September 2024, all our 5L and 8L, so basically all our 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel V2 DVR models support firmware version 1.4.10, which supports the 3K resolution. So just to say that again, all V2 models as of September 2024, all 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel V2 models support firmware version 1.4.0, which does support the 3K resolution. So if you've got any one of these models with older firmware, all you need to do is simply upgrade to 1.4.0 to get compatible with 3K cameras. What if I don't have a non-V2 model? So non-V2 models must be running firmware version 1.3.8 from September the 24th onwards. And you can easily identify that by looking at the firmware. And inside the firmware, there should be a date that says 2409. So all versions 1.3.8 running 2409 and upwards will be compatible to 3K cameras. Please note that any version 1.3.8 firmware release prior to this date will not support 3K. Here is a current list right now of all non-V2 models that have the 1.3.8 3K support, meaning 1.3.8 from the 24th of September onwards. This is a full list of the current models as of today. Okay, I'll leave it on the screen for you now, but you will receive a copy of this presentation. I also want you to note that non-NDAA models will not support 3K resolution, but please note Provision ISR stopped selling non-NDAA DVRs about 3 years ago. Yeah. I want to just clarify, we'll move on to another clarification regarding the resolution of our HD cameras and their selectable outputs. All our HD cameras have 3 selectable resolution outputs. To start, I'm going to list camera resolutions that we market and sell. So to begin with, we have a 2 megapixel camera, which is compatible with AHD, TVI, and CVI technologies. We offer a 5 megapixel camera compatible with AHD and TVI only. We also offer our new 3K series, which is compatible with AHD and TVI only as well. And lastly, an 8 megapixel range compatible with all 3 technologies, AHD, TVI, and CVI. These represent the maximum resolution for each camera series. Each series, whether 2, 5 megapixel, 3K, or 8 megapixel, has the capability to lower its resolution. Why might you need to do this? For compatibility limitations with certain DVRs will most likely be a factor. So for example, if a DVR is rated for 1 megapixel, it will only support cameras with a 1 megapixel resolution or lower. Likewise, if the DVR is rated for 5 megapixel, it will only work with cameras at 5 megapixel or lower resolutions. In such cases, you'll need to adjust the camera resolution accordingly to ensure its compatibility. My apologies. So here is how each model can be adjusted. So for our 2 megapixel HD camera, please note that we have 4 ranges: 320A, 320AB, and 320AU, and 320AR. The 2 megapixel can drop down to 1 megapixel in CVBS only in the 320A range. The others can only reduce to CVBS and not 1 megapixel. When it comes to the 5 megapixel camera, it can be reduced to 4 megapixel in CVBS, and the 3K camera can also be dropped to 4 megapixel in CVBS, and the 8 megapixel can also be reduced to 4 megapixel as well as CVBS. All this information is available in the camera specifications, which can be found on our website, provisionisr.com. So now I've just shown you our HD cameras are compatible with 4 analog technologies: HD, TVR, CVR, and CVBS. Let's turn our attention to how do you switch between these technologies. So our HD cameras are all equipped with dip switches located on the cable next to your BNC and DC connections. The specific sequence of the switches determines the output technology. So you'll find the dip switch map attached to the cable of the dip switch, and here are the configurations. If you require AHD, you must put dip switch 1 must be in the off position and dip switch 2 on the on position. For TVI, both dip switch 1 and 2 must be in the off position. For CVI, dip switch 1 must be on and dip switch 2 must be off. And for CVBS, dip switch 1 and 2 must be on the on position. When you change the dip switch settings, the camera will briefly turn off and then power back on using the newly selected technology. You also have the option to change the resolution and output technology through the OSD menu display as well. But before I show you how on an upcoming video, it's extremely important to understand that if you change the output technology in the OSD, while the dip switches are set to a different technology, so for example, if you set the OSD to TVI, but the dip switches are set to AHD, then in the event of the camera reboot or power loss, the camera will revert to the dip switch configuration. Therefore, it's always best to select the desired technology directly on the dip switches and then set your resolution using the OSD menu. Let's go check out the video so I can show you a bit more. So to access the OSD menu, we are going to hover with our mouse over the channel you need and right click to bring up additional options. When the menu appears, I want you to locate and click on PTZ control. And depending on the DVR's model, there are 2 ways to access the OSD menu. On newer models, you can select the OSD menu and use the arrow keys to navigate through the camera's OSD options with the enter button directly in the center. Okay, alternatively, you can access the camera's OSD by selecting preset, which brings up the PTZ control functions. So in order to open up the OSD via the PTZ functions, you click on the Iris Plus button, and then you can use the PTZ directional arrows to navigate the OSD menu, and the Iris Plus will function as the enter button. Now that I've shown you how to access and navigate through the camera's OSD, let me show you how to change the technology type and resolution using the OSD menu. Again, let's right-click on the camera and select PTZ control. Using the OSD menu, click on the menu button to bring up the camera's OSD. Navigate to video settings. Here you can adjust the video mode, which changes the actual technology, and the format, which adjusts the resolution in megapixels and the frame rate per second. For this tutorial, I'm using a 5 megapixel camera, and as a reminder, TVR and AHD technology support both 5 megapixel and 4 megapixel resolutions, even at different frame rates. However, if I select CVI, which is only compatible with 4 megapixel, then the only available resolution option will be 4 megapixel. If you make any changes, you'll need to apply and set them, and then the camera will reboot in the selected format. Okay. I want to move on to our first common compatibility issue. For this example, I want you to imagine that you have a 3K camera connected to a non-supported 3K DVR. And if you recall at the beginning of this webinar, I explained 3K and 5 megapixel cameras are essentially both 5 megapixel in resolution. The aspect ratio is that's different. So consequently, some 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel DVRs are not compatible to display in 3K. And you'll know there's an issue if your screen displays rolling pictures, shows no image at all, or only displays in black and white. In any of these cases, you will not be able to access the OSD menu to adjust the format and resolution to compatible settings. So what should you do? Let me demonstrate this for you in this video. So first of all, this is what a rolling picture would look like when you connect a 3K camera to an incompatible 5 or 8 megapixel DVR. But remember, as I mentioned earlier, 3K cameras are compatible with 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel DVRs, even if these DVRs do not support the 3K resolution. How is that possible? It's because you can reduce the 3K HD camera's resolution to 4 megapixel, which both the 5 and 8 megapixel DVR support. To recap, our 3K cameras can output three technologies, output three resolutions, my apologies, 3K, 4 megapixel, and 1000 TV lines with technologies like AHD, TVR, CVR, and CVBS. For this example, let's use a 5 megapixel DVR, which is compatible with these resolutions of 1000 TV lines, 1, 2, 4, and 5 megapixel cameras. Whenever you encounter a compatibility issue, not just with a 3K camera, but in general, you can use the same logic. Identify the supported resolutions of both the DVR and the camera, then find the common supported resolution and change the camera's resolution to the supported resolution of the DVR. In this case, using a 5 megapixel DVR and a 3K camera, the shared or common resolution is 4 megapixel. Therefore, we will need to reduce the resolution of the camera to 4 megapixel. So in order to do this, we can start by setting the camera resolution to CVBS by configuring the physical dip switches 1 and 2 to the on position. Since you have rolling pictures, apologies, it will prevent you from accessing the OSD menu. So the switch to CVBS will enable you to change the resolution to 4 megapixel using the OSD menu. Once the camera reboots in CVBS, you'll now be able to access the OSD menu. And once again, we need to change it to 4 megapixel. So navigate to the video settings as I've shown you earlier and change the video mode to TVR, AHD, or CVR as all three support the 4 megapixel resolution. So we have the option of all three. I choose AHD at 4 megapixel 30 frames per second. After selecting the video mode, we obviously set the format to 4 megapixel and then we save the settings. The camera will reboot but will remain in CVBS. Therefore, the final step is we need to match the dip switch configuration to the video mode you selected on the OSD, in this case AHD. So we'll put the dip switches 1 onto off and 2 onto on. Then the camera will reboot in AHD, and now the camera will display at 4 megapixel resolution in AHD on your DVR without any compatibility issues. Here's another common compatibility scenario. So you have a situation where the resolution of your camera is set to a compatible DVR resolution. However, you're getting a black and white image. This typically occurs when your camera is set to CVI, and let's look at understanding why. So it's important for you to understand that while our DVRs are compatible with AHD, TVR, CVR, and CVBS technologies, the DVR usually detects the camera signal format automatically and adjusts to ensure optimal performance and image quality. However, sometimes the DVR fails to auto-detect the signal format, resulting in the black and white image. In these cases, manual intervention is needed to select the correct signal format in the DVR's camera settings menu. The first step is to check the dip switch configuration on the camera, as the DVR settings need to match this technology. So in this case, it's set to CVI, and let's switch to a video to complete this tutorial. So again, you'll know there's an issue if the image appears in black and white. To resolve this, we need to access the camera settings and manually set the channel's incoming technology, in this case to CVI. And this is how we do it. We're going to access the settings menu, and we're going to select camera and then edit camera. Once we're in this menu, click on camera signal on the top left. We want to locate the relevant channel, and under signal, click the drop down arrow to manually select the technology. So there are all our four options, three options, should I say. Just to remember, we need to check the dip switch setting. In this case, it's CVI. So we'll change the signal to CVI. After selecting CVI, apply the changes, and the DVR will update with the new setting. And when you return to live view, the camera will display in color. This is not a troubleshooting, but this is a common question we get in our technical support, and that is how to enable audio over coax. So first of all, there are a couple of must-haves, and I'm going to split it between a hardware and a software perspective. So from a hardware perspective, your DVR must be compatible with audio over coax, and the camera must have a built-in microphone. From a software perspective, audio over coax will only function if the camera is set to TVR technology, and that the audio over coax setting on the DVR is enabled. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to use the website filtering tool to locate the DVR model that supports audio over coax, along with identifying cameras that feature built-in microphones. Then I'm going to jump right into the setting up of audio over coax. So first, go to our website, which is provision-isr.com, and navigate to the products at the top, and then select HD technology and choose DVR. Once you've done that, on the left-hand side, you'll find a filtering by features. Since we want to filter for DVRs compatible with audio over coax, we're going to locate the audio menu and then tick the checkbox labeled audio over coax. And you'll notice that even there it specifies TVR only, because as I mentioned earlier, audio over coax only works when the camera is set to TVR. So after making your selection, compatible DVRs will be listed in the center of the page. So we've got 24 at this moment. And then you can also see if the DVR is compatible with audio over coax by viewing the product page, scrolling down, clicking on features, and under audio, it will state yes, and again, it will state TVR only. Great. Now let's move on to the camera. Remember, the camera needs to have a built-in microphone, and we can use the filtering tool to locate the HD cameras with this feature. So select audio once we're viewing HD cameras, and check the box built-in microphone under audio. And you'll see we have 11 models with built-in microphones. You can also confirm if a camera has a built-in mic by checking the product page, and it's also indicated in 3 places. It's shown twice on the main page here, and under features, you'll find it listed under connectivity. now that we have compatible DVRs and HD cameras, let's enable audio over coax, starting by setting the camera's technology to TVI via the physical dip switches. For this, we want to set both dip switches 1 and 2 to the off position. Okay, and now we want to enable audio over coax in the settings of the DVR. So we're going to access the menu, navigate to camera, select edit camera, and go to camera signal. On the top left, sorry, camera signal on the top left, and then we're going to find the audio over coax option. So for your selected camera, go to audio over coax and switch it to on from the drop down. Once you've done that, click apply and you're all set. Audio over coax is now enabled for this channel. When it comes to listening to audio over coax, there are two options. So option 1 is through the DVR if a speaker is connected to the DVR's audio out port, or via the Cam2 mobile app. And let's go over how to use both. So on the DVR, I want you to hover over the channel where you want to hear audio, right click and select enable audio. You should now hear audio coming from the camera's microphone. DVR test 1 2 3. DVR test 1 2 3. Ami, can you confirm that you heard that? Okay, thank you. So that was the audio coming through the camera's microphone onto the speakers connected to the DVR audio output. In order to stop the audio playback, just right click and choose disable audio. On the Cam2 application, on the mobile app, you select the camera that you want to hear the audio from. At the bottom of the screen, tap the speaker button to enable the audio from the camera. Cam2 test 1 2 3. Cam2 test 1 2 3. Simply tap the button again if you want to disable the audio. All right, and with that, I conclude the presentation. I hope you found it engaging and that I effectively demonstrated how to resolve common troubleshooting issues. Hopefully I clarified for you the differences between the 5 megapixel and 3K cameras. And I also showed you how to enable audio over coax. Thank you for your attention. Ami, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ali. That was very useful. I learned a few things today. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us today.